I have one thing to say to those non-believers. Don't ever underestimate the heart of a champion.
In the decade of Michael Jordan's Bulls, they created a mini-dynasty of their own. With an all-time big man anchoring things in the middle and shooters around him, they were almost ahead of their time.
That is an NBA Finals record for Kenny Smith. That's his 7th from downtown.
They kept great teams in New York and Orlando from ever reaching the mountaintop, while reminding us all to never underestimate the heart of a champion. This is the story behind the mid-90s Houston Rockets. After moving from San Diego to Houston in 1971, the Rockets built themselves up to become a solid yet unspectacular team on the backs of legendary big men. Between 1976 and 1982, Moses Malone led Houston to 5 playoff appearances in 6 years, including a stunning run to the NBA Finals as a 40-win underdog in 1981. When Malone finally got over the hump 2 years later, however, it was as a Philadelphia 76er. After a 68-loss campaign following Malone's departure, the Rockets drafted Ralph Sampson #1 overall in 1983. Armed with the draft's top selection again a year later, the Rockets drafted University of Houston superstar Hakeem "The Dream" Olajuwon. A Malone protege who had worked out with the former Rockets big man during his collegiate years, Olajuwon was selected ahead of Michael Jordan, Charles Barkley, and other future legends in order to form a Twin Towers partnership the Rockets hoped would dominate the NBA for years. It didn't quite work out that way. Though the Rockets made the 1986 finals in just the second year of the Twin Towers era, Houston only averaged 47 wins in the 3 full seasons Olajuwon and Sampson played together. A 1987 knee injury sapped much of Sampson's productivity, and the 4-time All-Star was traded to Golden State the following year for Sleepy Floyd, Joe Barry Carroll, and Cash. With Sampson gone but Olajuwon improving, the Rockets remained good, but never great. Over a 5-year run from 1987 to 1992, Houston won between 41 and 52 games, but never advanced past the first round of the playoffs, compiling a 3-12 postseason record during that frustrating half-decade. Making matters worse, a disagreement with management over the status of a hamstring injury led to a 1992 Olajuwon trade request that thankfully for Houston was never granted. All the while, the seeds for brighter days were being planted, as the Rockets added players who would later serve as core pieces of title runs, namely Kenny Smith, Sam Cassell, Robert Horry, Mario Elie, Vernon Maxwell, and Otis Thorpe. In addition, head coach Don Chaney was replaced by his assistant coach midway through the 1991-92 season, former Rockets forward Rudy Tomjanovich. The breakthrough came the following year. In Tomjanovich's first full season at the helm, Houston exploded for 55 wins, with Hakeem winning his first Defensive Player of the Year award. The Rockets fell to Seattle in an epic 7-game second-round series in the spring of '93, but Houston was finally ready to win. When Jordan announced his shocking retirement from the 3-time defending champion Bulls later that year, it opened the door for a new challenger to ascend the NBA throne. Who better than Hakeem and the Rockets? It didn't take long for Houston to assert its dominance and emerge as a legitimate title favorite in the initial months post-Jordan. Led by some of the best basketball of Hakeem's career, the Rockets raced out to a record-tying 15-0 start in 93-94. If there was one thing Olajuwon's starless supporting cast was known for, it was shooting. The Rockets had earned themselves a reputation as the league's most trigger-happy team in the first half of the 90s. Though the attempt rates pale in comparison to even the most shooting-averse teams of today, those 90s-era Rockets teams were ahead of their time. From the 1990-91 season through the 94-95 campaign, Houston led the league in three-point attempt rate every year. With Hakeem in the middle, it was almost a precursor to Stan Van Gundy's 1-in, 4-out Orlando teams built around Dwight Howard a decade and a half later. Behind the Dream's MVP campaign and second straight Defensive Player of the Year performance, the second-seeded Rockets coasted into the playoffs with 58 wins. The team would be judged on postseason success, however, and that was far from guaranteed. After easily dispatching the 7th-seeded Trailblazers in the first round, Houston ran into 3rd-seeded Phoenix in the Western Conference semifinals. a dream matchup between the NBA's last two MVPs, Olajuwon and Barkley. When the Rockets dropped the first two games of the series at home, including blowing a 20-point fourth quarter lead in Game 2, local media lambasted them. With the NFL's Oilers and baseball's Astros earning reputations as good teams who could never win the big one, often snatching defeat from the jaws of victory in the most painful ways imaginable, Houston's collective sports psyche was fragile in the early to mid-90s. Now the Rockets were piling on, but two games don't make a series. After pouring in 67 points and 33 rebounds over games 1 and 2, Olajuwon desperately needed his teammates to step up and support him. Help would arrive beginning in Game 3, when Maxwell erupted for 34 points in a blowout road victory. With Thorpe, Smith, and Cassell pitching in the rest of the way, and Olajuwon continuing to dominate on both ends, Houston stormed back to win the series in 7 games, vanquishing some of the city's recent sports demons in the process. The real mission had yet to be accomplished, but Hakeem and company would take care of that in the ensuing weeks. With Ori stepping up in the West Final, the Rockets easily cast aside 5th-seeded Utah to set up a finals matchup with the Smash-Mouth Knicks, led by superstar big man Patrick Ewing and legendary coach Pat Riley. That championship series turned into a classic, with all 7 games decided by 9 points or less. The teams alternated victories through the first 4 games, with Cassell hitting the biggest shot of the series' first half in Game 3.
Olajuwon. And the one-on-one coverage pops it out. Here's Cassell for 3! Sam Cassell coolly hits from downtown to give the Rockets a 1-point lead. Teeing it up and firing it home. The Rockets have been 1 of the last 9 from three-point land in the second half.
When the Knicks won Game 5 to take a 3-2 series lead, a game that was interrupted for NBC's split-screen coverage of the O.J. Simpson freeway chase, the old Choke City narratives resurfaced. With 2 chances to close it out in Houston, it was the Knicks who fell apart, however. A Knicks comeback fell just short in Game 6, which ended with Olajuwon blocking John Starks' potential championship-winning three-pointer. Then in Game 7, Starks infamously shot 2 for 18 in a 6-point Rockets victory. Hakeem finished the series averaging roughly 27 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 blocks, and 2 steals, significantly outplaying an underperforming Ewing along the way. With a deserving Finals MVP added to his mantle, Olajuwon became the first player in history to win MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, and Finals MVP in the same season. As of 2023, the Dream remains the only same-year Triple Crown winner. With Jordan still playing baseball and the Rockets returning the same core that had just triumphed months earlier, the defending champs were expected to cruise through the 1994-95 season. No one was surprised then when Houston raced out to a 9-0 start, but what came next was perplexing. For no particular reason at all, the Rockets went from juggernaut to rather pedestrian, from inevitable to inconsistent. It wasn't that the team was bad. Houston had essentially brought back its championship roster. They just weren't quite the same. Between that 9-0 start and mid-February, Houston went 21-17, a run of mediocrity that saw the champs tumble from 1st to 6th in the West standings. Rather than resting on his team's laurels and assuming the Rockets would magically re-gel in time for the playoffs, general manager Bob Weinauer swung for the fences. The Rockets sent Thorpe, a 1995 first-rounder, and Marcello Nicola, a former second-round pick who would never play an NBA game, to Portland for Clyde Drexler and Tracy Murray. After winning the championship with no true number 2, Olajuwon now had a superstar guard beside him in Drexler, who was in the midst of his 5th All-NBA season in the last 8 years. Even better, the perennial 20-plus per game scorer was a favorite former collegiate teammate of Hakeem's. It wasn't all roses though. Between Hakeem missing time due to a bout with anemia, power forward Carl Herrera sidelined by a hamstring injury, and Maxwell so aggrieved he had to back up Drexler that he was eventually put on an indefinite leave by the team, Houston stumbled to a 17-18 finish. Forget repeating as champions, just getting out of the first round suddenly looked like it would be an accomplishment. While the Vultures circled, expecting to pick apart what was left of the champs, the Rockets regrouped and embarked on arguably the most inspiring postseason run in NBA history. It began with a 5-game upset of the 60-win Jazz, who took a 7-point lead into the winner-take-all game's final 6 minutes before Drexler took over. In the West semis against the 59-win Suns, the Rockets became the first team ever to rally back from 2-0 and 3-1 deficits in the same series, capped by Ellie's famous kiss of death in Game 7.
Rockets a three-point lead. It's over. The Houston Rockets have won Game 7.
Next came the conference finals, where reigning MVP David Robinson and his top-seeded 62-win Spurs awaited. The series tipped off with a tightly contested game that was ultimately decided by a game winner that birthed the legend of Big Shot Bob.
Drexler fumbles it in the paint. Open man is Olajuwon.
Oh, shoot the ball. Gotta take that.
Robert Horry hits the jumper.
What are you waiting
Good
on?
call, Goose.
Oh, what are you waiting on?
Horry's 1 of 5, and you know, that was spoken by a man who I remember taking some clutch shots himself.
With Horry's clutch daggers setting the tone, Hakeem carried the Rockets the rest of the way home, or rather to the finals, averaging 35.3 points, 12.5 rebounds, 5 assists, 4.2 blocks, and 1.3 steals on 56% shooting over the course of the 6-game West Final victory. When later asked by Life magazine how to solve the problem that was Olajuwon, Robinson shot back, "Solve Hakeem? You don't solve Hakeem." The next behemoth to at least attempt it would be Shaquille O'Neal. In their triumphant path through the Eastern Conference playoffs, Shaq and Penny Hardaway's up-and-coming Magic had vanquished a returning Jordan, now wearing the number 45, and his mighty Bulls. Hakeem's Rockets would prove a tougher task though. For a brief moment to open the 1995 finals, it appeared Shaq and company had an answer for the defending champions. But when Magic guard Nick Anderson missed 4 straight free throws in the final 10 seconds, he left the door open. First for Smith in the midst of a career night, and then for Olajuwon to rescue the Rockets.
All right, Ellie throws in for Smith, looking for the three. He's been on fire and hits. He's tied the game at 110 with 1 6/10 seconds remaining. And that is an NBA record for Kenny Smith. That's his 7th from downtown. For the man underneath the basket, Drexler puts the ball on Anderson. The finger roll, the tip by Olajuwon. The Rockets lead 0.3 of a second remaining.
Orlando's only other opportunity to steal a victory in that series came in Game 3, but another clutch jumper from Horry ended any hopes of that.
Shot clock at 6. Horry for 3. Robert Horry with the shot clock running down. Drills the three-pointer.
Olajuwon would help put the finishing touches on the sweep and his second straight Finals MVP award with a 35-point, 15-rebound performance in Game 4, capped by a rare three-pointer from the big fella in Shaq's grill. With that, the quest for back-to-back titles was complete, albeit in unorthodox fashion. The 6th-seeded Rockets became the lowest-seeded team to ever win a title, and the only champion to never have home court advantage in any round of the playoffs. Houston also became the first team to beat 4 50-plus win opponents in the same postseason. Between the odds stacked against them and the team's bevy of memorable crunch time moments that spring, Choke City had officially become Clutch City, and Tomjanovich had something to say about it.
And we had non-believers all along the way. I have one thing to say to those non-believers. Don't ever underestimate the heart of a champion.
Rudy T's post-championship address has become one of the most memorable soundbites in basketball history, and a rallying cry for athletes and teams the world over. From there, the Rockets would never look the same, literally, as Houston opted for a cartoonish jersey rebranding many felt was unbecoming of defending champions. Perhaps the uniform change was a harbinger of things to come, or the unofficial notice that the association's brief Rockets era was over. With Jordan back on a full-time basis and Dennis Rodman now part of Chicago's Big Three, the Bulls returned to glory, embarking on their second three-peat of the decade. Though the 1995-96 Rockets actually won one more game than they did in their second championship season, the team was swept out of the second round by Seattle. In response, the front office traded 4 players, including Horry and Cassell, for an aging Barkley to recreate the Twin Towers era. Houston won 57 games and advanced to the 97 West Finals, where they fell to the Stockton and Malone Jazz. Over the next 3 seasons, the Rockets tumbled out of contention, then right out of the West playoff picture. By then on his last legs, Olajuwon requested a trade and was sent to Toronto in 2001. The Rockets haven't made the finals since, and have won 8 playoff series total in the more than 2 decades since Hakeem's departure, the same number of series Houston won in 1994 and 95 alone. Those mid-90s Rockets took a jaded sports city on a magical ride, gave the NBA a giant to slay in Michael Jordan's wake, and yet still produced the type of Hollywood underdog story even casual fans could get behind. There will always be those who question whether Hakeem and his supporting cast could have got the job done had Jordan never put down a basketball to pick up a baseball bat. But the debate is irrelevant. Someone had to step up in his Airness's absence, and Olajuwon's Rockets did just that. For Houston, it was a dream come true. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video and want to see more content like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button.